off your engine! Well, here we go. Quality isn't what it used to be. Honda's recalling 1.79 million cars, and some of the recalls are for cars that may start on fire. 268,000, these are Honda CR-Vs, and the reason they're recalling them is because they might start on fire from a bad window switch. But it's not that simple. It turns out that they recalled them for the window switch in the past, but it turns out that the switches that they replaced them with are also defective, and they can start on fire. You know, that reminds me of the Takata airbags. It was the same garbage. They replaced them, but what did they replace them with? Takata airbags, and then those ones are defective, and they have to recall them again. You'd think they'd learn. The switches didn't work right. Hey, get somebody else to make the switches. Don't buy them from the same place. Let's face it, if you get something that doesn't work, do you go back and buy the same thing again? No, you get something else. You don't want to get the same thing again. That was defective. Hey, you buy something else. That's where, hey, we live in a capitalist society. You got a choice, right? If one product doesn't work, buy the competitor's product. Then, just by evolution of things, you'll find, hey, they'll make things better. Because if you don't buy the crappy things, those companies will go out of business. Should have thought about that one before they started replacing bad switches with more bad switches. And they're also recalling 430,000 vehicles because if they're up north with the road salt, the drive shafts have a tendency of rusting and corroding and breaking. Just what you want, your drive shaft breaking while you're driving down a highway. Now, Honda says that parts are not available for all the vehicles that have the drive shaft repair. Isn't that great? They're going to recall them and say, well, we don't have parts for all of these things. They're really dragging their rear ends on that one. And they also have software recalls. So if you own a Honda, it behooves you to get your VIN number. You can go to the National Highway Traffic Safety Association online, .gov, I believe it is, and you can type your VIN number, and it'll show you all the recalls for any car you have. And if you got a Honda, probably a good idea to check for recalls sooner than later. Well, here's some interesting news. If you live in the states of Washington or California, you will not be able to order a 2021 fancy Camaro, specifically the SS, the ZL1, and the ZL1 LE models. You're not going to be able to order one, because they're having an argument back and forth that they're using too much copper in the brake pads, and that causes pollution when they wear down, and it can kill fish in the water when it gets into the water. And so California and Washington are not going to allow you to order one of these 2021. But the oddball thing is, you can buy a 2020 that's in stock. You can't order one. But anything that's in stock, you can buy. When the lawyers and politicians get involved in our everyday lives, this is the stuff that comes out of it. Well, you can't order one, but if they got one there, you can buy it. I mean, it's just a matter of absurdity that our society is getting into. Now, it's only the SS and ZL1 Camaros that are affected, because the other ones use different brake pads. Those are the racing, faster ones, and so they put a higher quality brake pad that stops faster, but it contains more copper. Now, here's the funny thing. They're saying that over time, well, this copper can pollute this and that, right? But you really want the best brake pad you can if you're in a fast car like that. So they're kind of saying, well, you know, they're really good brake pads. They might save the people driving the cars, but it might damage some fish somewhere down the line. I think I'd rather be safe in my car, you know? Like I say, the crazier it gets, the longer it goes on when government gets involved in this stuff. But then, of course, the funniest thing is, you can buy one if they already have it at the dealer. You just can't order a new 2021 yet. And of course, then they'll end up changing the brake pads. It'll be the end of that, and then you can buy them. But a bit of absurd humor here. And you know it's got to be in the state of California. I mean, all the nuts are out there. Paul Butler says, I'm in Canada, I got an '06 Acura CXS automatic. It's always been rattling. It crackles and taps from inside the dash. You can even hear it in the back seat. The noise is present as soon as there's electricity. When the noise appeared, the engine and the fan were turned off. If I turn the key to the off position, the noise goes away. All right, I can tell you what's going on. Is those actuators inside there, as they age, they will make noise. They're electrically activated motors, but they have plastic parts. And as they they age, they rattle inside. When you turn the key off, there's no power to that. And of course, the way it works is when you start your vehicle up, then the computer sees, okay, where do you want your heating AC system, the HVAC system set? When you turn the car off, it sets it back to 0. And when you start it up, it goes to whatever position you want to put it on. And the noise is where those things are moving around. Well, when you find out what it costs to take apart the dash in an Acura, turn up the volume on your radio if you're listening to a hockey game up there. Or if you're listening to music, turn it up a little and ignore it, because it costs a fortune to take those dashes apart and then figure out which one of the activators is actually wearing. And realize they're all electric with plastic parts, and if one's breaking, the others will eventually start to make noise. You'd have to change them all. It'd be a small fortune. Don't worry about it. It isn't going to hurt anything, as long as you turn up your radio so you don't have to hear it much anymore. Runner Man says, Scotty, I'm looking for a dependable off-road vehicle that won't break the bank, 4x4. I have a 2016 Tacoma, but I don't want to wear it out because I want to drive it forever. What are some good used options for fun on the weekend? All right, if you're not going to drive that much, see what's out there. I mean, Ford's been making four-wheel drives for ages. Odds are you're not going to ever find a cheap Toyota 4x4, but you can find Fords, and you can find some older GMs. The advantage there is the newer GMs are kind of crappy, but the old ones, I had a customer just bought a 89 all-wheel drive Suburban. He got for $3,000. He loves it. He got it from some old guy in Washington State that died. His estate, he bought it, and it was a great vehicle. It had like 65,000 miles on it. It was amazing. So you never know what you're going to find where you're looking out there. And even if you look at some of the Nissan 4x4s, if you get one that's cheap enough and you're only using it for toys, go right ahead. You're not going to get a late model one. You're going to have to, get one that's got some mileage on it. But, the Fords are decent, and even the Nissans are okay if you get an older one before Renault took over the company and ran it into the ground. GeoMax01 says, Scotty, I'm the happy owner of a 2011 Acura MDX with 51,000 miles. I changed the timing belt and the water pump. After research, found that my 3.7-liter engine uses oil because instead of having the steel cylinder sleeves, they put a special treatment on the aluminum block, and they're wrong, and it burns some oil. Should I keep it or trade it for a 2014 or 15 that have the 3.5-liter engine? You're probably going to lose your shirt trading it. As long as it runs, oil is cheap, and it's not like they go insane. It's not like an old Vega that had to cast aluminum blocks that they coated with Teflon and then burn oil like a quart every 50 miles. They don't get that bad. Now, if you could trade it in and you can get a decent deal and not lose too much money, go right ahead. But you're probably going to find you're going to lose so much, you'll be happy with just adding a little oil every now and then rather than trading it in, because as they age and you trade cars in, you generally lose your shirt. And you know the history of the car. You're the original owner. You put a timing belt, water pump on it. You spent money. You took care of it. You get a used one. Who knows if it was taken care of? You trading one used for another used? I wouldn't bother. Speedy says, how do I replace the headlights on my Kia? I want to add LED and it has halogen bulbs right now. If you're talking about just replacing the bulbs, that's pretty easy. They just go inside, and if something like the battery's in the way, you take it out of the way, and you just twist them and they come out. And in case of LEDs, you just put them back in. And the good ones have a wiring harness that plugs right into where the old wiring harness is. And the good ones also have built-in ballast resistors. You don't want to buy a cheap one that just goes in, because if it doesn't have a ballast resistor, the LEDs often don't work right. Now, if you're talking about changing the whole headlight assembly, unfortunately, the headlight assemblies, you got to take the whole bumper and everything off to replace the whole assembly. But if you just want to put in LEDs, you get some good ones, and they'll come with the ballast resistors and a good pair. They're not all that bad. Usually you get a pair of them for $90, $100, get the good ones. Don't go out and buy the ones that are like $10.95. They're piles of junk. Get the good ones that have the ballast resistors in them and put them on, and they really are, the LEDs are excellent. All the cars are going to LEDs now anyway. Halogen bulbs use more energy, they're hotter, they work fine, but if you want the look of LEDs, you can buy them. There's a zillion of them out there these days. Just make sure you get them with the ballast resistors built in, so that later you don't have to wire in them because they're not working right, and then you got to solder wire in. Why bother when they got kits with them already in? When you buy a new car that has LEDs, of course, ballast resistors are built into the system. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.